He accepted the gift. Unaware it sealed his marriage to the alien girl, Captain Marcus Halston had always prided himself on being a seasoned diplomat. As a representative of humanity in the farthest reaches of the galaxy, he had encountered all kinds of alien species, from the peaceful to the fierce. But nothing could have prepared him for the strange and enigmatic planet of Jara. Jara was a world unlike any other, with its towering spires and vast, glowing fields. The landscape seemed to shimmer under the twin suns, and its inhabitants, the Jarni, were known for their advanced technology and equally mysterious customs. These alien beings had a reputation for their intelligence and beauty, but their culture was wrapped in layers of ancient rituals and traditions that even the most experienced diplomats struggled to understand. When Marcus landed on Jara, the planet's political climate was tense. The ruling matriarchal family had been embroiled in internal disputes, and his mission was to smooth things over, to ensure that the Jarni maintained their alliance with humanity. It seemed like a straightforward task, but Marcus quickly realized that nothing about Jara was ever simple. His first meeting with the Jarni royal family was held in a grand hall, its walls adorned with intricate carvings and strange symbols. The air smelled of sweet, exotic flowers, and a soft hum of energy filled the space. The queen, a regal figure named Sarina, sat on a throne of shimmering metal. She greeted Marcus with a calm, calculating gaze that made him feel as though she was weighing his every word. Beside her stood her daughter, Princess Lyra, who was both stunning and enigmatic. Lyra was tall and slender, with long silver hair that seemed to glow in the dim light of the hall. Her eyes, an unusual shade of violet, seemed to pierce through Marcus as if she could see his very soul. She stood quietly, observing him with a quiet intensity that made him uneasy. The queen spoke first, her voice smooth and authoritative. "Captain Halston, we are honored to welcome you to Jara. Your presence here signifies the importance of our alliance. We hope that you will assist us in maintaining peace, not just between our peoples, but within our own court." Marcus nodded, aware of the weight of the situation. "It's my pleasure, Your Majesty. I'm here to ensure that humanity's relationship with the Jarni remains strong and prosperous." Sarina studied him for a moment before nodding. "We are grateful. However, there is a matter of great importance that requires your attention." She gestured for one of the servants to bring forward a small, glowing box. The servant opened the box to reveal a delicate crystal pendant, radiant with a strange, ethereal light. "This," Sarina continued, "is a symbol of respect, a gift to honor your presence here. It is a Jarni tradition, one that signifies the beginning of a bond between two people." Marcus raised an eyebrow, uncertain of the significance of the gesture. "A gift, Your Majesty." "I appreciate it." Princess Lyra stepped forward, her gaze never leaving Marcus. She was holding the pendant, her fingers tracing its glowing surface. There was something about the way she looked at him, something almost familiar, but Marcus couldn't place it. "The bond," Lyra said, her voice soft but clear, "is not merely a token. It is a gesture that connects us. By accepting this gift, you are not just acknowledging our alliance, but also becoming a part of our world." Marcus was taken aback. "I don't understand." Lyra's smile was gentle, almost knowing. "You will," she said cryptically. "Once you accept, you will know." Marcus was about to protest, but before he could speak, Sarina's voice cut through the air again. "Please, Captain, we ask that you accept it. It is an important part of our culture, and it will bring us closer together." The queen's gaze was unwavering, and Marcus knew better than to refuse such a request. He had been trained to handle delicate situations with tact, and this was no different. With a deep breath, he nodded and stepped forward. Lyra carefully placed the pendant around his neck, its cool surface touching his skin. As soon as the pendant settled in place, Marcus felt a strange twinge in his chest, as if the air around him had thickened, becoming heavier. His vision blurred for a split second, and then the sensation passed. He shook his head, momentarily disoriented. "Are you all right, Captain?" Lyra asked, her eyes studying him intently. Marcus nodded, though he didn't fully understand what had just happened. "I'm fine." "Just a bit lightheaded for a moment." Sarina smiled, as if she had anticipated this reaction. "It is normal," she explained. "The bond takes time to settle, but now you are connected to us. Welcome to Jara." Marcus forced a smile, though he couldn't shake the feeling that something strange had just occurred. He couldn't quite explain it, but something about the pendant and the way Lyra had placed it on him felt significant. As the meeting continued, Marcus did his best to focus on the diplomatic matters at hand, but his mind kept wandering back to the pendant. What had just happened? He had accepted a gift, sure, but this felt like more than just a gesture of goodwill. There was something deeper at play, something that he couldn't yet understand. When the meeting finally concluded, Marcus was escorted back to his quarters. The hallways of the royal palace were quiet, but the air felt charged, as if something had shifted in the very atmosphere of the planet. Marcus dismissed the feeling as a product of exhaustion. It had been a long day, and his mind was likely just overwhelmed by the strange customs of the Jarni. Once inside his room, Marcus sat down on the bed, still adjusting to the weight of the pendant around his neck. It seemed to glow faintly in the dim light, casting soft shadows on the walls. He reached up and touched it, feeling the cool crystal beneath his fingers. The sensation from earlier, that strange twinge in his chest, returned briefly, but it quickly faded. Marcus stood up, pacing around the room. He needed to focus. There was a mission to complete, an alliance to secure. He couldn't afford to get distracted by a simple gift, but deep down he knew it wasn't just a simple gift. Something had changed. He couldn't explain it, but he felt connected to Jara in a way he hadn't before. A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. He opened it to find Lyra standing in the doorway, her eyes still holding that strange, knowing gaze. "Captain," she said softly, "how are you feeling?" "I'm fine, Princess, just trying to wrap my head around everything that's happened." Lyra stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, her presence calm yet undeniably powerful. She walked toward him and stopped just a few feet away. Her gaze never wavered from his, as if she was searching for something deep within him. "The bond," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "is real. You may not feel it now, but it will grow. And soon you will understand what it means to be connected to Jara." Marcus looked at her, still unsure of what she meant. "Connected?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, it is not just the planet that you are tied to, but to me and to my people. You are part of us now, whether you realize it or not." Marcus stared at her, his mind racing. The pendant, the strange feeling, her words, none of it made sense, but it was all starting to feel too real to ignore. "I didn't ask for this," he said, his voice suddenly cold. "I didn't ask to be part of your world." Lyra's eyes softened, but her resolve remained strong. "None of us ask for it, Captain, but fate has a way of guiding us down unexpected paths. You will see. Soon you will see." And with that, she turned and left, leaving Marcus alone in the quiet room, the faint glow of the pendant the only light in the darkness. The weight around his neck felt heavier now, and he couldn't help but wonder if it was the first sign of something much larger that was about to unfold. In the days following his strange encounter with the Jarni royal family, Marcus found himself feeling increasingly unsettled. The planet, with its glowing fields and towering spires, seemed to hum with an energy that he could not ignore. Every step he took in the palace felt like an echo of something bigger, something he couldn't quite understand. And all the while, the pendant around his neck glowed faintly, almost as though it had a life of its own. At first, Marcus tried to focus on his mission. He was here to secure the alliance between humanity and the Jarni, and he intended to do just that. He spent his days meeting with various Jarni officials, discussing trade agreements and diplomatic protocols. Yet, despite his best efforts to remain professional, his mind kept drifting back to the princess and the mysterious pendant. Princess Lyra was never far from his thoughts. She was always present in the palace, whether attending to matters of state or simply moving through the halls like a figure of grace and mystery. When they did speak, her words were carefully measured, often leaving him with more questions than answers. Her cryptic comments about the bond between them gnawed at him, but Marcus pushed them aside, telling himself that it was just an unfamiliar custom. Nothing more. But the dreams were harder to ignore. Each night, as Marcus lay in his bed, he would drift into a deep sleep, only to be awoken by vivid dreams of Lyra. In these dreams, they were always together, standing on a cliff overlooking a vast, shimmering sea. Her eyes were filled with an emotion he couldn't quite place, and every time he tried to speak, no words came. It was as though they communicated through feelings alone. The dreams were brief, but they left him feeling unsettled, as if something was slipping away from him, something he couldn't grasp. One morning, after waking from another such dream, Marcus sat up in bed and stared at the pendant. It was still glowing softly, hanging from his neck as though it had become a part of him. The feeling he had when he first accepted it had returned, that strange sense of connection, as though it were pulling him toward something he couldn't see. He tried to ignore it, but the thought of Lyra's words echoed in his mind. "You are connected to us now?" Was it possible? Was the pendant really more than just a gift? The more he thought about it, the more the pieces seemed to fall into place, though he still didn't fully understand what it all meant. He had accepted the pendant, but did that truly mean he had accepted a bond with the Jarni? Could it be something like marriage, as Lyra had hinted? The idea seemed absurd, but there was a growing unease within him that suggested it might not be so simple. He decided to seek answers, hoping to find someone who could explain what had happened. His first stop was to meet with Lyra. She had been elusive since their initial meeting, but he knew she was the key to understanding all of this. He found her in the royal gardens, sitting beneath a tree that glowed with bioluminescent flowers. She looked up as he approached, her violet eyes locking onto his. "Captain," she said, her voice soft and calm, "what brings you here?" "I need to understand something," Marcus said, feeling the weight of the pendant against his skin. "This bond you spoke of. What does it really mean? What happens to me now?" Lyra regarded him for a long moment, her gaze unwavering. She seemed to be weighing his words as though deciding how much to reveal. "The bond is not something that can be explained easily," she said finally. "It is a part of who we are. It is a way of connecting to the heart of our world and to those we choose to bind ourselves to." Marcus frowned. "I didn't choose this, Lyra. I didn't know what I was accepting. It was just a gift." Lyra's expression softened, and she stood, walking toward him. "You think that the gift was merely an object?" "No, it was a ritual, one that has been practiced for centuries. When you accepted it, you accepted more than just a token of our people. You accepted the bond. Whether you realize it or not, it has already begun to change you." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. He couldn't deny the truth in her words. He had felt it too, that strange connection, that pulling sensation. He reached up, his fingers brushing against the pendant, and for a moment he felt something stir inside him. A flicker of emotion, something that felt foreign yet familiar at the same time. "You will learn to feel it," Lyra continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "The bond connects us on a deeper level. It will grow stronger, and you will begin to understand things you never could before. It is not something to fear, Marcus. It is a gift, just as much as it is a responsibility." "Responsibility?" he repeated, his voice tinged with disbelief. "I never asked for any of this." "I know," Lyra said quietly, "but the bond is not about asking. It is about what we are meant to do. You are now part of us, and we are part of you." Marcus shook his head, trying to make sense of it all. "This doesn't make sense. How can I be part of something I don't even understand? How can I be part of your people when I'm not?" "One of you?" Lyra smiled faintly, her eyes full of understanding. "Because you are more than just a human, Marcus. You are connected to us now, and in time you will see the power that comes with that connection." Marcus couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Everything was happening too fast, too suddenly. He had come to Jara with a clear mission, but now he was caught up in something far bigger than he had ever imagined. He didn't know if he was ready for it. He didn't know if he ever would be. "I'm not sure I'm ready for this," he admitted, his voice low. Lyra's gaze softened and she stepped closer. "No one ever is, but we don't have a choice. The bond chooses us, and once it's made, there is no going back." As she spoke, Marcus felt a strange pressure in his chest. The pendant around his neck seemed to pulse, and for a moment it felt as though his very heart was beating in time with it. He could feel Lyra's presence in his mind, a faint echo of her emotions, a whisper of something he couldn't quite reach. He stumbled back, shaking his head. "What's happening to me?" Lyra reached out, steadying him with a gentle hand. "It's the bond. It is awakening inside you, but don't worry, it will not harm you. In fact, it will help you. It will make you stronger, more connected." Marcus felt a surge of conflicting emotions, fear, confusion, and something else, something that felt almost like longing. It was fleeting, but it was there. "I don't know if I can do this," he said, his voice strained. "I didn't come here for this. I just wanted to make sure our people stayed allied. I didn't expect." Lyra placed a finger on his lips, silencing him. "I understand, but the universe has a way of changing the paths we choose. Now you must accept this. You must accept the bond because we are already bound together, and there is no going back." Marcus looked at her, his heart heavy with uncertainty. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear. He was no longer just a diplomat. He was something more. something irrevocably tied to a planet and a people he barely understood. And no matter how much he resisted, the bond was already inside him, growing stronger with every passing day. As the days passed, Marcus could feel the weight of the bond growing stronger. It was no longer just a vague feeling or a strange connection he could ignore. It had become a part of him, something inescapable. The pendant around his neck pulsed faintly with energy, and more often than not, Marcus found himself rubbing it absent-mindedly, as though trying to understand it, to break free from it. But no matter how much he tried to push it away, it remained, like an invisible thread tying him to Lyra and to Jara itself. The dreams continued, but now they were more vivid than ever. In each one he found himself standing next to Lyra, the two of them gazing out over the shimmering sea that stretched for miles below them. In one dream, they were sitting together under the stars, and he could feel her emotions, her calm, her longing, and her quiet strength. They were words unspoken, but somehow they were louder than anything he had ever heard. It was as though the bond was speaking to him in a language beyond words. Marcus woke up from these dreams drenched in sweat, his heart racing. He couldn't explain what was happening. He didn't understand why these dreams felt so real, or why he could feel Lyra's emotions as if they were his own. Every time he tried to push these feelings away, they grew stronger, more insistent. One morning, after another restless night, Marcus decided that he couldn't ignore it anymore. He had to confront the truth. The bond was real, and it was changing him. But the question still lingered in his mind. What did it all mean? What was this bond really, and what would happen if he accepted it fully? He made his way to the royal palace, his footsteps heavy with uncertainty. The tension in the air felt thicker than ever, as though the entire planet was holding its breath, waiting for something. The political situation on Jara had become increasingly fragile. The ruling factions were divided, and Marcus could sense that the bond was somehow tied to this instability. If he was going to get answers, he knew he had to speak to Lyra. When he arrived at the palace, Lyra was in the royal gardens, as she often was, surrounded by the bioluminescent flowers that glowed softly in the dim light. She looked up as he approached, her violet eyes locking onto his. There was something in her gaze that seemed to pierce through him, as if she could see everything he was feeling. And in that moment, Marcus knew that there was no hiding from the truth anymore. "Captain," Lyra said, her voice soft but steady, "you've come for answers." Marcus nodded, his throat dry. "Yes, I need to understand what's happening to me, to us." Lyra stood up and gestured for him to sit beside her on a nearby stone bench. As he sat, he could feel the weight of the pendant against his chest, its presence almost suffocating. "The bond," she began, her voice gentle, "is not something that can be explained easily. It is not a physical connection, but a spiritual one. When you accepted the gift, you accepted me, and in turn, I accepted you. We are now tied together not just by the pendant, but by something deeper. It is a bond that connects our souls." Marcus took a deep breath, trying to make sense of her words. "But why? Why me? Why did I have to be the one to accept this bond?" Lyra's eyes softened. "It wasn't a choice, Marcus. The bond is not something we control. It chooses us just as it has chosen you. The Jarni believe that the bond is part of the natural order, a way of connecting us to the very essence of the planet. It is a way of uniting our species with others who are meant to be part of our world." "But I'm not one of you," Marcus said, his voice thick with frustration. "I'm human. I came here as a diplomat, not as someone who is supposed to be part of your people." "I didn't ask for this." "I know," Lyra replied softly, "but the bond does not ask for permission. It simply is, and once it has been forged, it cannot be undone." Marcus looked at her, feeling the weight of her words. There was no escaping it. He was bound to her, bound to Jara, in a way he couldn't have imagined. And the more he tried to resist, the stronger the bond became. He had never felt anything like this before, this pull, this sense of belonging, as though his very soul was being drawn toward something, toward her. "What will happen now?" Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra gazed at him, her expression unreadable. "Now you must choose. You can either embrace the bond fully or you can resist it. But know this, Marcus, resisting it will only cause pain to you and to me." Marcus felt a sharp pang in his chest at her words. The thought of hurting her, of causing pain to someone who had already become so intertwined with his life, was unbearable. Yet the idea of fully accepting the bond terrified him. What did it mean to embrace something so unknown, so powerful? I don't know if I can, he said quietly. I don't know if I'm ready for this. Lyra's eyes softened and she reached out to take his hand. You don't have to be ready, you don't have to understand it all right now, but you must trust that the bond will guide you. It will show you the way. As her hand touched his, Marcus felt a wave of warmth wash over him. It wasn't just physical warmth, but something deeper, an emotion, a feeling of connection that surged through him. For the first time since arriving on Jera, he felt as though he was not alone. He was a part of something larger than himself, something that stretched beyond the boundaries of the planet, beyond the stars. And Lyra, with her quiet strength and unwavering gaze, was at the center of it all. But as the warmth spread through him, so too did a sense of dread. The bond was real, and it was growing stronger with every passing day. Marcus didn't know if he was ready to face it, to fully accept the responsibility that came with it. But one thing was certain, there was no turning back. The bond had already been forged, and now he had to decide what to do with it. I don't know how to be part of this, Marcus said, his voice tinged with uncertainty. How can I fit into your world? I'm not like you. Lyra smiled faintly, her fingers tightening around his. You are more like us than you think. The bond connects us on a deeper level. It will help you understand our ways, our culture. It will show you that there is more to this world than you could have ever imagined. Marcus looked into her eyes, searching for answers. He had come to Jara with a clear mission, to ensure that the alliance between humanity and the Zharni remained strong. But now his mission had changed. He wasn't just a diplomat anymore. He was something more. He was a part of this world, a part of something he had never asked for but couldn't escape. I don't know what the future holds, Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. But I know one thing for sure, I can't walk away from this, not now. Lyra nodded, her expression softening. You don't have to walk away, Marcus. You are already here, and together we will find our way. As they sat there, side by side, Marcus felt the weight of the bond pressing down on him, but he also felt a sense of peace. It wasn't an easy peace, and it wasn't one he had chosen. But it was the peace that came from understanding that some things were beyond control. Some things were meant to be, and so he would face the future, whatever it may bring, with Lyra by his side. He would embrace the bond, not because he fully understood it, but because he had no other choice. The universe had already set its course, and now he would follow it, wherever it might lead. Marcus had learned to live with the bond, though he still didn't fully understand it. Each day felt like a new chapter in an unexpected story, one that pulled him deeper into the mysteries of Jara and the Zharni people. The pendant, once just a strange token, had become a constant presence around his neck, its glow faint but steady. He could feel it like a pulse keeping time with his heartbeat, reminding him that he was no longer just a visitor on Jara. He was part of it now, tied to the planet, and to Lyra in ways he couldn't fully explain. The political situation on Jara had only grown more tense. The ruling factions were divided, and it seemed as though a storm was brewing on the horizon. The Zharni people were proud and deeply connected to their traditions, but they were also facing threats from within their own ranks. Marcus could feel the weight of it, as though the very air around them was thick with the uncertainty of what was to come. Lyra had kept him informed about the struggles within the royal court, but she had also tried to shield him from the worst of it. She had always been calm, steady, but there were moments when even she couldn't hide the strain. Marcus could see the toll it was taking on her, the pressure of being a leader, the weight of her responsibilities. She carried it all silently, but Marcus knew that it was not just the fate of her people that she worried about. It was the fate of their bond, of them. It was in one of these moments, during a rare quiet evening, that Marcus found himself alone with Lyra in the royal gardens once more. The sun had just set, leaving the sky painted with soft shades of pink and orange. The bioluminescent flowers around them glowed faintly, casting an ethereal light over everything. Marcus and Lyra sat side by side on a stone bench, the cool air of the evening settling around them. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was comfortable, but heavy with unspoken thoughts. Marcus still wasn't sure what to say. He didn't fully understand the depth of his connection to Lyra, but he couldn't deny that something was there, something powerful. It wasn't just the bond, though that played a big part in it. It was the way she made him feel understood, the way her presence seemed to settle a restlessness inside him that he hadn't even known existed. Lyra finally broke the silence. There's something you need to know, Marcus. He turned to her, surprised by the seriousness in her tone. What is it? She looked at him with those violet eyes of hers, eyes that seemed to see right through him. The political tensions on Jara are getting worse. The council is divided, and there are factions within our people who do not accept the bond between us. Marcus frowned. What do you mean? Are they against you? She nodded. They believe that the bond between us is unnatural, that it weakens our people's independence, that it ties us to something foreign. There are those who think that if the bond is broken, we will be stronger, that Jara will be stronger. Marcus felt a pang of guilt. The idea that his presence, his bond with Lyra, could be the cause of division among the Jarni made him uneasy. He had never intended for any of this to happen. He had come to Jara with the best of intentions, to help secure an alliance between their people. But now it seemed as though his very existence here had become a source of conflict. But what can we do? Marcus asked. Can't we just ignore them? We have the right to choose our path, don't we? Lyra's gaze softened, but there was a sadness in her eyes. I wish it were that simple, Marcus, but this is bigger than just us. The Jarni people have always been bound by tradition. Our customs are sacred to them, and this bond, it challenges everything they believe in. There are those who see it as a threat. Marcus took a deep breath, trying to absorb the weight of her words. He didn't want to be a threat. He didn't want to cause any more harm, but it seemed as though their bond had become more than just a personal connection. It had become a symbol, a political statement, and in a world where tradition and power were everything, that was a dangerous position to be in. I didn't ask for any of this, Marcus said quietly. I didn't ask to be part of your world. I didn't ask to be bound to you in this way. Lyra reached out and placed her hand gently on his. I know I never asked for it either, but we can't change what has already been done. What we can do is find a way to move forward together. We can't let others control our fate. Her words were steady, and yet Marcus could hear the uncertainty beneath them. She, too, was struggling with the weight of everything that had happened. The bond had changed their lives in ways neither of them had expected, and now they were caught in a situation where their personal connection was not just a matter of the heart, but of survival. I don't know how to fix this, Marcus admitted. I don't know what we're supposed to do. Lyra squeezed his hand, her grip firm. We don't have to have all the answers right now, but we have to stand together. We can't let this divide us. Marcus looked at her, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the flowers. He didn't know if they could fix everything. He didn't know if they could change the way the Jarni people saw their bond, or if they could convince the factions that their connection was not a threat, but a strength. But he did know one thing: he couldn't do it without her. And maybe more importantly, he didn't want to. Lyra's eyes met his, and for a moment the world around them seemed to fade away. The tension, the uncertainty, the fear, it all vanished in that instant. There was just the two of them together, bound by something deeper than words, deeper than politics. The bond had brought them together, and even though it had changed everything, it had also given them something that neither of them could have predicted. A chance to face the future, whatever it held, side by side. We'll figure it out, Marcus said, his voice steady, though he knew the road ahead would not be easy. We'll face whatever comes together. Lyra nodded, her expression softening with relief. Together. The sound of footsteps interrupted the quiet moment. Marcus turned to see a group of royal guards approaching. Their presence reminded him of the ever-present danger looming over them. The political unrest was not just a matter of debate anymore. It was becoming a threat to their very lives. The leader of the guards, a tall Jarni warrior named Kale, stepped forward. Princess Lyra, Captain Halston, he said, his voice formal but respectful. There are troubling reports from the council. They are gathering for an emergency session. It seems they are preparing to make a decision regarding the bond. Marcus exchanged a glance with Lyra. The council had already been divided, but this, an emergency session, meant that things were escalating. The decision the council made today could change everything. I'll be there, Lyra said, rising from the bench. She turned to Marcus, her eyes filled with determination. Stay by my side, Marcus. No matter what happens, we face this together. Marcus nodded, his heart heavy with uncertainty. He didn't know what the council would decide. He didn't know what the future held for him, for Lyra, or for the bond that had brought them together. But he knew one thing: whatever happened, he wasn't walking away. They would face it together, no matter the cost. The council chamber was tense, filled with the heavy silence of anticipation. Marcus stood at Lyra's side, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. Around them, the council members murmured among themselves, their voices low and filled with suspicion. It was clear that the decision they were about to make would be one that shaped the future of the Zharni people, and possibly the future of his own life as well. Lyra, though calm on the outside, had an unmistakable tension in her posture. Her eyes, usually so steady and confident, betrayed a flicker of uncertainty. Marcus could feel it, the pressure bearing down on her. She had never faced a moment like this before, and he couldn't help but feel that it was partly because of him, because of the bond between them. The room was filled with Zharni council members, each of them adorned in ceremonial robes that shimmered in the soft light. They were the leaders of Zhara, the ones who controlled its fate, its future. And now they were deciding whether to embrace or reject the bond that tied their princess to a human diplomat, a bond that had never been seen before, and one that many considered a threat to their traditions. The council was divided. There were those who believed that the bond between Lyra and Marcus could bring a new era of unity, a bridge between two worlds. But there were others who saw it as a weakness, a dangerous entanglement that would dilute the purity of Zharni culture and compromise their sovereignty. The debate had raged for weeks, and now it had come to this, the final decision. Lyra stood at the front of the room, her posture regal, yet the anxiety behind her eyes was impossible to ignore. Marcus knew that, as much as she had tried to shield him from the weight of her position, she felt the full force of the decision that was about to be made. She was not just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for the future of her people, for their survival, and for the bond that had become a part of her life. The head of the council, a tall and imposing figure named Darius, stepped forward. His eyes, sharp and calculating, moved from Lyra to Marcus, studying them both with an intensity that made Marcus feel like he was being weighed, measured, and judged all at once. "Princess Lyra," Darius began, his voice booming through the chamber. "We have gathered here today to address the matter of the bond that ties you to this human, a bond that has caused division among our people, a bond that challenges the very foundation of our culture." Lyra straightened, her chin lifting with determination. "The bond between Marcus and me is not something to be feared. It is not a threat to our people, but a chance for us to grow, to become something greater than we were before. The bond is not just a connection between us. It is a symbol of unity, of understanding between our two worlds." Darius raised an eyebrow, his expression skeptical. "Unity or weakness? The bond between you and this human has caused unrest among the Zharni. It has made us question the very essence of who we are. We are a proud people, bound by tradition. We cannot afford to be swayed by foreign influences." Marcus could feel the heat rising in his chest. He had expected this. He had known that the council would never accept the bond easily. But it didn't make it any easier to hear the words. It was as if they were dismissing everything he and Lyra had built together, everything they had shared. "You speak of tradition," Lyra said, her voice steady but firm. "But tradition is not meant to keep us stagnant. It is meant to guide us forward. The Zharni are a strong people, but we must not be afraid to evolve, to change when the time comes. This bond is not a threat to our strength. It is a testament to it." The council members exchanged uneasy glances, some of them clearly torn, but Darius remained unmoved. "You are the princess, Lyra. You are the future of our people, but you are also bound by your duty to us. And your duty is to preserve our way of life. This bond is a danger to that." Marcus felt his heart pounding in his chest. He had never been a part of something so complex, so filled with so much weight. He was just a human, thrown into the midst of a world he didn't understand, bound to a woman whose future was now uncertain because of him. The thought of it made him feel small, insignificant, but he couldn't back down now. Not when Lyra's future, and the future of the Zharni, depended on the decision being made in this very room. He stepped forward, his voice steady despite the nerves churning inside him. "I didn't come here to threaten your culture. I didn't come here to change your way of life. I came here to help, to build an alliance between our peoples. But I can't do that if you can't see past the bond between Lyra and me." The council murmured, some of the members looking taken aback by his boldness. Darius, however, was not impressed. "You speak of an alliance, human, but an alliance requires trust. And how can we trust you when you are bound to our princess in a way that we do not understand? A bond that we cannot control." Lyra stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension in the room. "You think you can control everything. You think you can control me. But this bond is not something that can be controlled. It is something that must be embraced for both our peoples. We cannot keep holding on to the past. If we do, we will never move forward. Marcus could see the emotion in her eyes, the same determination, the same strength he had seen in her from the beginning. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for a future where the Zharni and humanity could stand together, not as separate, isolated worlds, but as equals. Darius took a step back, his face hardening. "I have heard enough." He turned to the council, his voice rising in authority. "It is clear that the princess is not willing to heed our concerns. It is clear that the bond is something she values more than our traditions. As such, I call for a vote. Those who believe this bond should be broken, step forward." A few members of the council stood, their faces set in grim determination. The others remained seated, their gazes uncertain, unsure of where to place their trust. Marcus's heart sank. He had known this might happen, but to see it unfold in front of him, to feel the weight of the council's decision hanging in the air, was harder than he had imagined. Lyra stood silent, her eyes not leaving Darius. She was calm, but Marcus could feel the quiet storm inside her. This was her fight, her people, and she was prepared to lose everything if it meant standing up for what she believed was right. Darius raised his hand, signaling the vote. "Let it be known that we, the Council of Zhara, have made our decision. The bond between Princess Lyra and this human is hereby declared a threat to our sovereignty." The room fell into an oppressive silence. Marcus's heart pounded in his chest, the world seeming to close in around him. Lyra's face went pale, her hands trembling slightly at her sides. The council's decision was clear. They had chosen tradition over the future. But as the council members stood to leave, something unexpected happened. The sound of footsteps echoed in the chamber, and one by one, the remaining council members stood up, not in opposition, but in support of Lyra. They stepped forward, their faces full of defiance. "We will not stand by and allow this decision to define us," one of the council members spoke up, his voice strong. "The bond is not a weakness, it is a strength. We will stand with Princess Lyra." Slowly, the others followed suit, and soon the majority of the council members were standing with Lyra, not against her. Darius stood frozen, his eyes wide with disbelief. The room was no longer divided, it was united. United by the bond, by the future they all knew could be something greater. Lyra turned to Marcus, her eyes shining with something more than just relief. There was hope. For the first time since they had arrived in Zhara, Marcus felt like they had a chance. A real chance to change the course of history. Darius, realizing that he had lost the vote, stepped back, his face dark with anger. "This is not over," he muttered before storming out of the room. Lyra turned to Marcus, her face softening. "We've done it," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "We've won." Marcus reached out and took her hand, feeling the bond between them strong, unbreakable. They had faced the council's judgment, and now, together, they would face the future.